All right, hey, ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? Welcome to a new format for Comic Book Radio. Basically, what's going to happen is, and of course, I'm your host, Peter Cimetti. What's going to happen, we're going to have a featured guest. It's going to be about an hour-long show. The first half hour, I'm going to spend that time with the guest. We're going to be having conversations about their book, a couple other things as well. And then the next half hour, the second half, I'm going to put a link in the chat, an invite link. You guys can join the show. I prefer it if you're on camera, just so we can verify you. But if not, that's fine too. You could just have audio. That's cool. So you guys can actually have a question, a comment, whatever it may be, for me or our guest, which would be Von KLAUS tonight. We got Von. So it should be our due. Let's bring on the man of the hour.
Hello, Mr. Pizza Cimetti. It's good to be here,
What's up,
man?
Von? Good to have you. So you got a lot of stuff going on lately, man, and we got a lot to talk about. A lot of stuff to cram into this hour tonight.
Yeah, we do, man. Let's get going. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to this. Yeah.
We got a couple of great people in the chat here. We got Ara here.
Cheers.
Jefferson Roswell, Randy Scribner, Lloyd Burton. Thank you guys for joining us nice and early. Okay, so without further ado, getting into your book here, you got Terror in the Trenches. And this is currently in demand, right?
Yes, sir.
Congratulations on the success of this campaign.
Thanks.
No problem at all. What was the inspiration for this?
Spite, mostly. I was mad that no one was doing anything cool with a character I saw so much cool potential in. It really wasn't mostly spite. I'm kidding. It was a nice mixture, like most of the things that get me interested in writing about a character like this. It was something I've been looking forward to writing since I first walked into a comic book shop as a kid, because Punisher and Wolverine and the dark, violent Avenger hero for me was where it was at. And it was also just seeing such a cool character like Terra, like I said, and people just not really, it's like they just didn't get what to do with him, maybe, or it was more seen as, he's a golden ager. There's nothing really interesting here. Nobody really cares about him, so why even bother? But instead, I saw that as potential to do something really cool and surprise people with, I guess, because people didn't expect that much. So all these things came together and got me late at night working on this book that ended up being about the darker, Avenger heroes, but also about fear, what we're afraid of, how fear controls us, how it drives us, how we react to it. And it ended up becoming this really deep, really amazing journey into a dark avenging hero who's kind of on the verge of losing his mind and becoming a bad guy himself. And before I knew it, I was like, should I actually make this book? Because at first it's for the love of it. I didn't start writing this thinking, let's make some money off of Black Terror. I mean, that's an uphill battle, my friend. I'm really lucky to have done as well as I have with the awesome support, fans and everybody on this, so thank you everyone for that. But yeah, that's kind of where it started. It was me late at night jamming this out and just having a great time trying to make Terror into something that people had never expected.
So with this, were you a fan of the Golden Age character for a while, or when did you discover it?
I can't even remember the first time I saw a picture of him. I believe I saw some concept work on Black Terror by Alex Ross. And I was like, that's pretty cool, but why don't I see this guy in his own book or around? So I look around, I research, and it must have been, I don't know, was it whenever Alex Ross was maybe doing that stuff? I can't remember if that was early 2000s or when it was. You must know, Pete.
Yeah, it seems about that point in time.
About that. Yeah. So that's when I discovered him and was like, why does a character look this cool? Not, what's his story? And so yeah, from there I became kind of a fan of his look. I wasn't necessarily a fan of the character. All the different versions of him I read were kind of different and odd and doing their own thing. Alan Moore did something with him where he built a robot version of himself and crazy, all these different interesting things, I just saw the potential to turn him into what he was originally, which was a World War II trench warrior, the dark side of heroism. I when I was researching him, I read a lot of the fans of him back in the 30s when he was being published liked him for being the superhero who kills, and who does the naughty things that the other heroes didn't necessarily do. He was our Dark Avenger, so he was the Punisher of his era, if you will.
Nice.
Yeah, and
yours differs by staying truer to the source material.
Exactly, I broke the mold.
it's coming full circle. You're bringing it back. Well, that's right. Great. That's always good when you can do something like that too with the public domain character. Is find the core of what makes that character great, and really just put your finger on that pulse, as opposed to finding something and just reinventing it in such an extreme way that you look at it and you go, why don't you just make your own character? Why would you even do this to a pre-existing character?
Yeah, that's a great question that I did receive too. It's totally fair. I mean, why not just give him a different name and just call it a day? I felt a connection to Black Terror as I was working on this. It wasn't something I planned to necessarily publish. It was more something that you're jamming out on a riff late at night. It's like a musician thing, and it became its own beast. And before I knew it, man, I was thinking it would actually be more badass to take a character that people do know and don't expect much with, and totally wow people with it. Also, I'm not going to get hired to write Wolverine or Punisher ever, anytime soon. So why not show people what I can do with a character kind of like that, and have fun with it? Bring back the fun.
That's great. Okay, so I'm putting the link here in the chat for you guys. You guys can go check this project out. If you haven't had a chance to do so, you could do it right now, or wait till we're done with the conversation here. It's up to you. But so I want to pick your brain on a couple other things. We'll put this away for a little bit. So with public domain characters, was there anything that you were worried about in terms of the legality of anything? Because even though a character could be in public domain, there's still some little odds and ends here and there that can be wrapped up in a legality with like a film right or a trademark or whatever it may be. And were you worried about any of that?
Yeah. I did my homework, and I actually what planted the seed of me thinking about what I would do with terror was someone asked me to write a terror story one-shot for their book if they had reached a certain stretch goal on their campaign. Alas, sadly, they didn't make it to that stretch goal, but I was thinking about it. What would I do with him? I could make him so much cooler. I could make him cooler. He deserves better. But when them wanting to do that terror story, got me thinking about it. And so I was thinking, I went to them and I said, what's the legality? Because you guys were going to do a terror story. And he said, oh, cool, I know it all. Let me set you straight. They told me basically what Dynamite owns in terms of you can't put Black Terror on a cover. The words Black Terror.
Yep.
And so, I figured all that out, and I've avoided that. And
that's great.
And from there, it's been pretty clear. Yeah,
it's funny how silly a lot of copyright and trademark laws could be. It's like, well, you could pretty much do the character and all this. Just don't use the title, or have the name or whatever. The trademark is far more imposing of a feat to overcome than it is the copyright of the character.
Right.
So it's Sherlock Holmes is a really famous one where everything's all wrapped up in this big giant web of insanity. And
really?
Same thing even with Dracula in terms of certain things with film and things like that, and certain studios own it, and then they don't own it, and then they own certain stories but not other stories. Same thing with Sherlock Holmes. So it turns into this big giant mess. So you've lucked out that you managed to get an interesting character, a character that you have an affinity for, and all they care about is just don't say Black Terror as the title. And if anything, Terror in the Trenches is a great title.
Thank you, man. It harkens back to that old age again, doesn't it? It's what's
exactly
cool about doing this. I could get a little retro on you while kind of bringing it into an. I feel like the way I write, though, there's some manga sensibility in there, and it's this old meets new that I think makes for a totally flavor.
Yeah, totally
cool style book.
So as far as this book goes with the subject matter and this character and this kind of a story, There are some paranormal elements to it. There's some stuff that's kind of like a horror action adventure thing going on. Have you always been drawn to stuff like that?
Yeah, as a kid, I grew
And
up
and I
in
say
North.
this as someone who has no idea that you've had Monster MD and things like that.
Of course, no clue. And, I as a kid, I was raised by a mom who loved Halloween and loved all things creepy and weird and horror stories, ghost stories, and the paranormal, and just kind of introduced me to that. My dad introduced me to the 1980s action movies and all things high tea and stylish and
Oh, so
fun.
this merges that for you then.
Ka-choo. Yes. And then you put it together. I've always, and yeah. So when I first saw his character design too, with the skull and crossbones, I'm like, what is he about? And when you see him in a lot of comics today, it's like kind of like he's a superhero pirate, sort of.
Yeah,
Ish. It's
yeah.
like
That's the
they don't
last
know
time I
what to
saw
do.
him. Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought that I probably had the same thought that you had, where when I saw that image, I was like, there's potential there, but it's not what it is right now. It almost
Right.
had kind of a silliness to it, and in
Right.
something that you could have really made badass, and not taking it necessarily seriously in that kind of weird monotonous way that a lot of superhero stuff is taken nowadays, but more in that way that you at least treat it seriously. And it felt like that kind of stuff. It wasn't really doing that, and this is interesting the way that you're taking it and that you are treating it. I think more seriously than that image that I saw, the Alex Ross stuff with the Dynamite comics back in the early 2000s, I believe. So yeah,
Right.
it's kind of funny that yeah, I had that same thought. So that's interesting.
Isn't it? The potential was right there, and I thought to myself, someone's gonna do it if I don't, and I'll feel bad type
You're
thing.
lucky no one did.
I really am, and that he's not a tangled web of whatever. I like that he wasn't as popular. I love an underdog, and so I was able to kind of do my own little thing with him. Though I explore he in the original book, he made a gas to help pep people up or whatever because it was the 30s. That's how they talked, and it gave him super durability, super strength. And that was kind of it. And he immediately said, I'm going to start fighting crime with this. This is awesome. I'll go and fight the war with this. Throw airplanes at Nazis and stuff. It was great. So I wanted it to be more than that. I wanted the skull and crossbones on his chest to not be piratey. I wanted to take it in a direction of toxicity, of poison, of death and fear. And so he takes this
Which is
toxic
ironically what the
gas.
skull and crossbones was meant to be on a
Right.
pirate ship's flag.
See, I went right back around again.
Yeah, yeah,
To the original meaning.
exactly.
And who knew that it was already cool? Because I like the idea of him instead of just he'd huff the gas and now he's super forever. He huffs the gas every now and then, kind of like a battle popper that gives him strength, or maybe it'll heal him if he's taking a lot of damage from something
Oh,
powerful.
kind of like smelling salts when you're an athlete.
Right. Evil green smelling salts that also, when he exhales, it gives him a fear toxin byproduct. So when he fights with the trench knives, he gets personal, he gets close. It's bloody, it's brutal, but you also see him is what you fear most. So it's kind of a scarecrow thing. People are falling down in fear instead of fighting him. Other people run for it. Other people attack him. It's different reactions for everybody, but it's part of the why he got the name from the Germans, at least in my story, Black Terror.
Oh, it's very interesting. Yeah, so it really sounds like you didn't just do your homework on the character, but you obviously did your homework on the history that the character was being based on, and you brought it back to that, which is great. I'm really starting to think the more you talk about it, I'm thinking that they really got inspired by this character to make the Punisher. But that's neither here nor there.
By oh yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
it just seems a little, the skull on the chest, and he's this badass who'd kill among these other heroes
Yes.
who really weren't killers. They wouldn't want to cross that line. It's interesting, and especially how you say that. And is it something true to the Golden Age version of the character with what you're doing, where it's psychologically he kind of almost flirts with crossing that line, or is that something that you brought to it entirely?
He I I think I like to think I brought that to it. But I haven't read enough of the old stuff to
Because that,
say for
yeah,
sure.
'cause that seems
You
very
know,
deep. If they did do that, that doesn't seem
right?
very golden age kind of storytelling.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. It was more about just a Tommy gun and having fun
Yeah,
back then,
exactly.
and
Yeah,
nothing wrong with
exactly.
that, you know.
Yeah, yeah. They're really just kind of like, no, I'm cool. My conscience is clear. That dude deserves to be pumped full of bullets.
Yeah. God bless America. We're done. Um, terror with my terror, it's more he's on the battlefield and he is brutal and horrific, but there's still that one code of honor that tethers him to convincing himself he's a hero, you know. And my question in this story is what happens when he loses it, and then what happens when his neighborhood is blown up and he's kind of forced to tread back into the ashes of what was his peaceful life, now destroyed, now and filled with all kinds of creepy ex-Nazis from his past, and he has to be the terror again, and he's scared he's going to lose his mind again, and when he does, friend and foe alike could be slashed up in a berserker rage where he blacks out. Um, it's he's dealing with a lot. He's even haunted a little bit by his of his wife in this, so it's very it
Oh,
does have
okay.
that supernatural
His
edge
wife is
too.
his wife is deceased.
hmm They opened. She kind of was the person that helped him pick himself back up again after everything went wrong and on the battlefield in the old days. She and him, they opened this pharmacy together. Kind of became the caretakers, local neighborhood, and he lost her. And about that, you're gonna have these. There's these her ship and what the story is with her and how everything. It's really cool. It builds the terror character in a way that I think a lot of people are gonna like.
That's great. Yeah, it's always good when you can have these characters that they were kind of almost leaning on for moral support, and then when these characters are gone, see what happens with it, how it affects them. And it
Right.
sounds like that's what you're doing, which is fantastic. So you mentioned a couple different things. There's supernatural stuff. There's paranormal stuff. And you come from a background where you've always been interested in that kind of thing as well. Have you had ever any paranormal experiences?
Oh man, great question. I don't know if I have, but damn, do I try? And do I and have I had family members tell me bad things have happened to them with ghosts? Yes. Um, have I had friends tell me horrifying things? Yes. I haven't caught anything on video or anything yet.
Nothing that made you for a second even think like, I don't
Oh
really know what that
no,
was, but
I've had I don't know what that was moments. I have, yeah, but
very
nothing
interesting.
nothing too like okay, I like nothing I couldn't explain. What about you?
It's weird stuff. There's been just weird energies. There's been like that feeling
Oh,
of like this is a bad place.
mhm.
Um, uh, Erin's an empath. I swear to God, she has weird kind of visions and feelings of places, and then we'll look them up. Like there was a real weird story one time. We were looking up
Oh,
apartments, and we were doing apartment hunting in Salem, Massachusetts, and there was a building she just didn't want to go check it out. It seemed like good rent and everything, and why not? Let's check it out. And just from seeing it, she was freaking out. She's like, no, and she was getting really anxious. She was getting nervous. She was having a difficult time breathing. We got home later that night, and she's looking it up, and she goes to me. She's like, you wouldn't believe. And I wasn't really feeling much about the building. I
right.
got to kind of be in a space to kind of feel anything ever, but she can just like look at something and know it's off.
Oh
So she
well.
looks it up and she tells me, she's like, you wouldn't believe that building today, what that was. And I was like, what do you mean?
Oh
So
no.
she tells me, she's like, it was a building where one of the victims of the Boston Strangler was murdered.
Oh,
And I was like,
1970s? Was that
yeah,
when that was the 70s, wasn't it? That's creepy. I lived in a haunted, what used to be a hotel, but it was now apartments in Chicago. It's an old school hotel, like kind of nice, kind of like with the nice molding and pan. Like it was nice in there, but someone was murdered in one of the rooms in the 80s there
that
and
like
placed
the
in a bathtub.
is that the Cecil Hotel?
Huh?
Where was that? You said out in L.A. Is that what you said?
Oh, this was in Chicago.
Oh, Chicago. Okay, I'm thinking,
hmm
yeah.
Someone was. You can look up the article, but someone was murdered and left. Some guy was killing the college girls that lived in some of the
Oh
apartments there
goodness.
and leaving them in bathtubs.
Yeah, that's horrible. There's
Yeah,
so much. Yeah,
creepy.
there's so much creepy, kind of awful history and residual energy stuff with all of that, especially old hotels, and then I mean, obviously, like the any kind of insanitarium or any kind of TB hospital that was opened up. So many awful things.
Mm,
Man, oh man.
yeah.
So there's so much history with your book. Did you look up anything else that was historical that was alongside of that regarding World War II, especially the Nazis and things like that? Because there's a lot of genetic experimentation. There's a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
looking into all of that. The stuff that you mentioned, like fear gas and all these other kinds of things, were trying to be brought to real life. And in some cases, they kind of succeeded with a couple horrifying things.
You know, the main villain is absolutely your classic mad genius Nazi doctor. Just can't wait to experiment with all the horrible things. And I didn't research it that much because I already knew about it because I've read up on World War II myself, but I had this friend growing up from like college onward for 20 years who that's all we talk about. Like he's a big nut for it, so he teaches me stuff. He's told me about all the evil Nazi doctor stuff. So for this, though, there was something really special that I researched personally from World War One and Two that helped inspire the villains for this book and the story in a lot of ways. I was at a flea market, and this guy had his table out with all the cool World War II weaponry and stuff. And I picked up at what looked like a regular trench knife, but when I pulled it out, it had a creepy as hell saw on one side of the blade. And I said, "What is this sawback thing about?" And he said, "Those were a horrible weapon because you had to change your knife yourself to have that blade on it. And people usually did it because they wanted to and torture their opponents, saw through bone, pull out guts, basically be even more brutal than the average soldier already was." And so they were made illegal in World War One. If you caught a German soldier with them in World War II, the guy told me that we would just shoot them. No quarter. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Because we saw them as these, it was what the evil guys had.
Yeah,
Um,
that was above and beyond. It's one thing to kill; it's another thing to torture
to maim.
and kind of be sadistic about it, because you
It
have to
was,
enjoy
yeah.
that.
Right, right.
You
So
know.
that's what the creepy horror story he told me, and I'm sitting there holding this, going, "What a fantastic villain weapon! Like what a great image for the story."
Yeah, it just
So,
tells you so much right off the bat.
mhm, yeah, it's where honor of the battlefield in World War II collides with barbarianism in one weapon, and it, you know, becomes the cool metaphor for the story.
Yeah, it's a very medieval kind of weapon.
Hmm.
You know, that's the funny thing about nowadays is people act as if. I mean, honestly, if I had to get something like that or whatever from the medieval era done to me compared to just getting shot, I think
Yeah.
I'd much rather take the bullet.
Well,
But
yeah.
it's funny that people think violence. So violence will completely go away if guns were to go away. Yet meanwhile, I mean, look through history. History is full of awful violence, stuff that we can't even comprehend.
Yeah.
It's oh goodness gracious.
You ever go
But
to like a Renaissance fair and their torture chamber with all the different real life torture
I
devices?
wonder if
The old days,
because
they're
yeah,
fun. Real
right. I
fun.
wonder if because we have that kind of setup now and it's viewed as like this archaic thing that almost feels like it's just a part of movies and it's been romanticized and almost humorized in a way that it's
Yeah.
sort of like, oh, this stuff. Hey, look at me. I'm over here and
I'm in the Iron
I'm,
Maiden.
yeah,
Whoops.
I'm gonna get drawn and quartered. Isn't that funny?
Oh, watch
It's
out
just
for the
like,
pendulum. Yeah, limbo
yeah.
out of there. Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
What a horrible way
Oh
to die,
man.
right?
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's funny because people act as if violence was invented with the gun, and it's strange. It's and
Yeah.
it's not to say that kind of stuff is not horrible or anything along
Yeah.
those lines, but holy smokes, there's obviously something that is askew, to put it lightly, with people who enjoy doing bad things to other people. Especially people who have done them no harm and there's no reason to do it, and it's just this cold-blooded, psychopathic violence.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
when you have a character like Black Terror in your book, and they're doing these kinds of things, but they're doing them to horrible, awful people, it does
Yeah.
make you have that kind of cathartic feeling of, like, well, good, right? Because someone's got to do that to these awful, horrible people, and at the same time, it's interesting because of the fact that it depends always on what side of the cause you're on. Because to them, the people he's fighting, this guy is a menace. He's
Yeah.
horrible,
He's
and
the
then
terror.
and then on the other side, he's a hero. Is he built up as a hero on his own side, or do they also kind
Yes.
of not like his tactics?
He's built up as a hero, but it's very it's kind of funny. One of the first images on the first page, actually, you see this painting of him on the side of the airplane. So it's like how America sees him, all bright, shiny, classic golden age hero with the American flag behind him, of course, looking up into the future, right? And then you see terror starting to come out of the plane in the shadows, and you realize this is a totally different dude than what. So he's romanticized, and I even have there's comic books of him. So he's it's kind of a little meta like that. His good
Oh,
friend runs a barber shop, and he says the kids love the terror comics to shreds in there or something. He makes a little comment. So that's the
awesome.
romanticized version of him, right? And of course, we get to see the real torn up, dark, avenging hero losing his mind version in this story, which is always fun.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a it kind of sounds, especially in the era that it's in, it reminds me of if this was an extremely realistic take on Captain America. That kind of a thing. Where here you have this nice, almost, it's propaganda essentially of, he's big and bold, and he's bright and shining and he's smiley, and but on the battlefield he's, no quarter given, no quarter
Vicious.
asked. Yeah, and that's the
Yeah.
side that you don't see, and that's the side that needs to be what it is. But it's that kind of a thing. It's not just literally, a Captain America would necessarily come along and bop him on the head and be like, "Now don't you do bad, Mister Nazi," and then move along to the
Yeah.
next guy. He'd be like, "No, pop, pop, chop your head off with the shield if he needs to
Yep.
keep moving along." That
Yep.
kind of thing. Break some necks, snap a spine or two, punch some guy, a hole through their chest, and keep moving along.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's the reality of that type of situation. So it's interesting to see how you're having Black Terror go through that and actually show kind of the brutality as well of war, especially a war like World War II.
Yeah, when I saw him, I was like, this isn't a pirate. This is a trench warrior. This guy needs a black trench coat to replace the cape. We'll lose it. It could be hanging off the shoulders, kind of behind him, floating all creepy, black leather, a little bit of red, which is still reminiscent of his original design. Well, but it's more clean now. It's a little more simple, a little more Bruce Timm. I've always kind of come from the school of that Bruce Timm style, I guess. Ever since Batman animated that book, I wanted to learn how to do character designs the way he does, where it's just so simple and yet effective at the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
time. Love that stuff.
yeah. The economy of line is great. So your artist on this, who is it?
Oh, this is Monica McCagney of Italy. She was my artist on Monster MD as well.
Oh, no way! Wow.
Yes, we've been talking about doing this. We said, should we do Monster MD2? Yes, we want to, but we both agreed that the idea behind this was so different and badass. We just wanted to do it. And when we did the character designs, which you'll get to as you keep going, that's when I knew we had to, like, this book could be something else. This could be special. A little special book.
That's great, man. Oh man.
Good
So
stuff.
I've got
Lady
the link
Satan.
here in the chat. What was that you were gonna say? Sorry.
I was just sorry. Lady Satan here, another Golden Ager that was really fun to work in and redesign her and make her into a little gun witch for the story. So really love her.
Nice. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
great
And
stuff.
for the villains, I just got to have fun inventing my own. I knew, or at least in my opinion, to do this story right and make it cool, it needed a cool cast. It wouldn't just rely on terror.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's do all the evil, horrifying, creepy Nazi villains I've always wanted to do, and just have fun with it.
That's great, man. Oh man.
Terror Cycle.
Now,
Pretty easy to name
before,
things.
yeah, right.
That's another
It
reason.
just kind of names itself.
Yeah.
Now, before we go, we got that first half hour here is done. We're gonna have the second half hour here. I'm gonna put the link into the chat, and you guys can join if you have any questions for us. Let's see here. All right, there is the link for you guys if you'd like to join, and if you've got a question, especially a question or a comment for Vaughn. If it's something for me, for Alterna, or whatever, don't worry about that. We can talk later. Vaughn is here. We want to make sure that we give him our full attention. So join us on air, and we'll have you on if you got a question or a comment. Cool. So with this, I want to play the trailer, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about some of the perks too.
Cool. Roar. Terror trailer. That's what you call that.
Very nice, man. Who put together your trailer? Was that you?
Yeah. Just me. I just
Solid.
do everything. I'm so tired. So tired. But I love it. I love getting to do it. I mean, that's why I do this, right? To do it my own way, to carve my own path. So, good stuff.
Came out great.
Thanks, bud.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, when I was working on this, I kind of, part of what made me love this story more is I started to realize how I really like to do my books, how I want to approach things as a writer, how I approach my fight scenes, how I approach, a lot of storytelling. This book really helped me level up. It turns into this the whole story is one horrifying night in Black Terror's life. It's a throwdown brawl in the ashes of what was his neighborhood after it's bombed by Nazis to get revenge in the past. He's gonna figure out who they are, what they're about, what's really going on, and throw down with them, man. He's gassing up, getting his powers back in the Terror Dome on his throne, and knifing up and just running through the trenches of what was his neighborhood streets, man. Taking these guys on. It's gonna be brutal. It's gonna be I don't know how else to describe it. It's something else, man. When people read it, I think you're gonna be surprised.
Wow. Let's see. Brian Sunleol has a question for you. Says, so Vaughn, what's next? Monster MD Volume 2 or Terror in the Trenches Volume 2?
Oh, cool. Great question. So we want to just finish the trilogy for Terror in the Trenches, and then I want to hop on Monster MD 2 as soon as possible. At least that's the plan for now. So.
Okay, wow. So you got 2 other volumes coming out for this.
Mm-hmm.
Goodness gracious.
I know. It's a longer road than I could have predicted. But the script, when I was done, I didn't worry about page count. It was one of those things where I just wanted to tell the story and just see what happened. It ended up being around 206 pages, something like that.
This book is 206 pages, Volume 1?
No. The whole story.
I was going to say, holy smokes.
The trilogy, once you own it.
I was like, maybe you should have thought about, cap it off a little bit.
Yeah, maybe.
It's like
Oh my
this just doing
god.
600 to 800 pages for a
Mon-
trilogy here. I was gonna
Monster
say.
MD was only 141 or something pages, and that took forever to come out with at that amount. So I'm not going down that road.
Wow. Okay, so
Going
how
down that
many
road.
pages is volume 1?
This is a 78-page book.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's a good amount.
Yeah, that's one lesson learned from Monster MD.
Very nice. Well, yeah, we got a couple of great looking perks here. So at $80, you got Total Terror. What do they get in that?
You were going to get the whole shebang. You're getting the digital version, a signed comic. You're getting the T-shirt, which glows in the dark, campaign only, baby. You're
Nice,
getting
I
a
love that.
double-sided. Oh, it's so cool. I've always getting to make glow in the dark skull and crossbones shirts is what I've been waiting for since I was a kid. I think
That's
I've
right.
been dreaming of this. You get a Lady Satan pinup poster with Kelsey Shannon beauty, and on the other side, more Monica McCagney art. So it's really, really sweet little double-side action. You get the Terror Files print set, which is our character designs that you saw, and these nice prints. And on the other side, it's kind of these, what would I call them? Top secret files that have information on the character. You're seeing their secret stuff, so it's kind of cool and creepy and secret.
Very
And
nice.
we'll put your name in the book too, thanking you, of course.
That's awesome. A lot of what you're doing, I feel like and obviously this came out before my King Cryptid campaign, but I'm seeing this and I'm like, some of this stuff I'm like, I'm doing it too. I've got a glow in the dark shirt. I've got trading cards with some deep classified information from Necro, which is the New England Cryptid Research Organization, and just
cool.
like all these little bonuses that are not just like frilly extra bonuses, but they actually add something.
Yes,
and that's what I feel you're
Good
doing
call.
here too, which is great.
Good call, man. We have similar tastes here, definitely.
That's
Because
awesome.
you want to build these worlds. You don't want to just, you know what I mean? You want to take
Yeah, exactly.
even a little trading card. It adds to it in cool ways. So, you and I know this as fans growing up with our cards and stuff. So
Yeah, I loved trading cards when I was a kid. That helped me to learn more about the characters because you couldn't run around buying all the comics you wanted to buy. You only get so much money to spend, and trading cards, you get a pack of that. All of a sudden, you're learning about 10 or 12 new characters, and that kind of helped you to go down the path of like, oh well, I want to learn more and read about this one. So that's great.
That was great. And it's were you ever into the Marvel role playing game at all?
A little bit. You mean the Marvel Overpower card game?
No, actually, I'm not. It's not the card game, but just the dice game. The Marvel.
Oh no, I never played that. I played the card game for a little bit.
Okay.
I must have been
cool.
like 11 or 12 when that came out.
The Marvel RPG game was cool because even if you didn't play the game, I mean, all the stats and
I always wanted that. Yeah, I saw the ads in the oh man,
Yeah.
that always seemed awesome.
It was great.
Yeah. Yeah, I was later on in the mid 90s or so, I think they came out with the Marvel Overpower game, the RPG game. Oh man, I always saw the ads for it and I always wanted to play that, but just could never find it. And then by the time
It was hard to find.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
It really was.
Goodness. Let's see. Apex says I came up with my Executor glow in the dark shirts with a gaping open mouth skull from '98. I hear you, Vaughn.
Brilliant. That's what it's about, man. Good designs, good times.
Absolutely. So again, if you guys want to join us here, let me put the invite for you guys one more time. You can ask a question or even just say, Vaughn, this book looks cool. And then you can just jet. You don't have to stick around for the whole time.
Nope.
There's a link for you. Feel free to join us. We'll be going for another 20 minutes or so. And so we have a T-shirt here at 30. There's a signed comic at 25. Digital as well for 20. And then there's a signed comic plus two-sided poster for 45. You got a couple other great stuff here, too. Let's see. Micra is wondering, why didn't you put Monster MD as an add-on? Did you run out?
I did not. It is an add-on.
Oh,
You'll be happy to know. Yes, if you guys click, if you click one of the physical copies of it, you will be able to add Monster MD on your way out. Perhaps I should have made a tier where it's get the book and Monster MD at the same time, so people would see that hindsight type thing. But yeah, on your way checking out, you guys will see Monster MD is an add-on.
Oh, there it is. Great, fantastic,
chance, baby.
So yeah, so if that was something you liked and you wanted, hopefully you can go back there and get that. It is definitely on there.
Oh yeah, and we're gonna try to start sending those out sooner than we get the Terror book, so you will be getting the Monster MD a little before. It'll be after our campaign's closed, of course, but so expect that.
Let's see. I guess sometimes it depends where you're looking, because it's easier on the desktop than it is on a phone with the add-ons and things like that.
Dang,
especially, and it's nothing that we could do as campaign creators. It's more about the fact that the way it's set up, and even the wording sometimes is strange. So like you'll go over here and go to click on it and it says get this perk. But on the phone, it says something like go to checkout or whatever it is. And it makes it seem as if like there's no add-on section. But once you click that and you actually do it, you'll see the add-ons and things like that.
Yeah. If you need to, no, you're cool. Maybe, I don't know if you're going to buy a book or not, but maybe we could work out something online to help. I don't know. Fix the situation. But,
yeah.
Oh, pardon me.
No problem. Yeah,
it's
definitely there though.
Yeah, the Terror files are pretty sweet. I think people will dig getting the character designs. You could frame them if you want, or just to have them and get some cool, extra info on these characters.
Nice.
I want it to be written as if a CIA agent who's been having to follow them is watching them, being freaked out by the whole experience, seeing their powers or crazy things they do or say.
That's great. Yeah. Seriously, you're saying that, and I'm like, that's exactly what I'm doing with the cards on the Necro stuff. Yeah, it's basically a Necro file. It's a case file on each issue.
I mean,
and it's being talked about. Yeah, as if like they're reporting it, and it's kind of like cover-uppy the way it's written.
Ooh,
like they know what's going on, but they're kind of dismissive of it in a way.
Yeah, have some areas blacked out, by the government and everything. That's what
Absolutely, yeah.
Perfect.
Man, oh man.
I can't wait. I supported the book, so I can't wait to get all those extras you're talking about now. You got me all excited, man.
Oh, cool. Yeah, every single physical perk background, the King Cryptid campaign gets one of the trading cards randomly. And then we also had packs, but they sold out. But these are the cards I'm talking about. And then have like case files and stuff like that on the back.
Perfect.
But yeah, that's awesome when you get to do stuff like that. And that sounds great what you're doing with your prints, too.
Yeah.
See, so there's a Terragas vial replica. Goodness.
Oh, this is crazy. I can't believe I'm doing this, but
you're gonna get people in trouble.
I did it. Yeah, I know, right? Like, what are you getting some gas sent to your house?
They're hooked on the gas.
Sounds a little dangerous. Yeah. Put your green M&Ms in here, pretend. So this is a replica, and that I've been working with this guy, and I think it's going to be amazing. It's hand painted. It's almost a 1-to-1 scale, I would say, for Terror's vials himself. Almost, it's close to it. And he pops the tops on these. The gas comes out. He inhales it. He gets powerful. He gets all amped up. He goes into battle. So these are kind of the vials off his belt. I've never done a replica before. I thought I'd start kind of simple and just have fun with it. But the cool thing about these that I think makes them worth owning and being able to look at on your shelf is that just one of these is very important to the plot of this story. And you're going to find that out.
Are you able to actually open this up too? Or is it no hinge to it or anything like that?
I mean, we could have made it so you're able to just pull off the tops.
Oh, yeah.
But I just felt like that might be kind of weird, or people might be able to, it might hurt the paint or whatever and stuff. So we're just gluing them down, keeping it like
good,
as if it's really one of his vials. Because you can't pop these off. There's no screw off on them. You have to have his extra strength to be able to pop these, if that makes sense. It's kind of like the ultimate child proof, because not even an adult can pop these things.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, it's kind of like if a Pez was impossible to open.
Yes. Pasa Pez. Yeah.
That's great. Let's see. You got 2 signed comics as well for 50, 10 books for 200, and then a bunch of sold out items as well.
Originals, yeah, beautiful
Fantastic.
artwork.
Is
Yeah,
that
man,
Preston?
that is
Preston
good old
Acevedo?
Preston. Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, he did. Oh God, he's such a sweet kind of Simon Beasley punk rock terror for us. I just love it.
That's awesome. Yeah, he
It's
does such
been
great
fun.
work.
Yeah, and getting to put a skull and crossbones on T-shirts all day has been just a blast. I love an excuse to do that. I'll take any excuse I can. So
Seriously, yeah, and especially the glow in the dark aspect is amazing. We had that as a kind of like a stretch goal of if we hit a certain backer amount. I liked it so much that in the beginning of the campaign I had it set at 51K, and I was like, I can't wait to 51K. I'm just gonna set it at like 400 backers or something because I really want a glow in the dark shirt.
I'm not gonna miss it.
So let's just upgrade it automatically. Everybody that gets a shirt, it's glow in the dark now, and that's that. But
that's the perks of running your business right there.
Right? You get to be a little bit selfish on that aspect, but it benefits everybody, so it's good.
That's awesome.
And everyone was loving it. So I mean, who the heck doesn't love a glow in the dark shirt? I wish all my shirts were glow in the dark.
That's a pretty good stab, actually. Like everyone knows you as like the glow in the dark guy. You're always going to get a good glow in the dark shirt from him.
Yeah, exactly.
Go with that.
So once again, guys, if you would like to join the show and stop by and say hello, if you've got a question or a comment for Vaughn, you can stop right in. And please don't be shy. If you got any questions in the chat, please let us know too. So what's that about Bigfoot?
Do you believe in Bigfoot, Peter?
I believe in practically everything in some capacity. Unless I'm one of those guys that's like the absence of proof is not the proof of absence. I'm that kind of a guy.
Right. You're waiting for him to be discovered fully.
Exactly. Yeah. The way I see it too is the fact that this thing, Bigfoot, aliens, whatever, anything, name it, it could exist. They're never going to want us to know. So officially, they're never going to put that out there in any capacity because it starts to kind of disprove other things. Even in certain other cases, too, we're talking about we live in a time where we take for granted that certain animals and creatures exist, and that's just known science. Maybe 100 years or so ago, and in many cases that is the case for a lot of animals, they were just myths. There wasn't any documented type proof that they existed.
Right. Like the mountain gorillas thing.
Exactly,
we heard of them. We'd heard of them. Found them later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but now if you have this thing that's kind of like this large, and there's been stuff like that throughout history in finding the skeletons and the fossils of such things, but if you find something that exists currently, because that's the thing too, is so many people have made these reports, have said these things, and of course not all of them are going to be legitimate. Some are attention-seeking type people. But there's so much of it, and in so many instances a very similar kind of report. It's got to be out there. And if anything, they never research it enough, because I would think that in this day and age where it's kind of easy enough to kind of have infrared set up everywhere all the time and kind of capture something like that and canvas the area, and and the fact that they don't really want to do that kind of seems suspicious. Because it'd be easy enough to just disprove it and be like, look, we've got everything set up. Nothing's ever getting caught. They just more like, well, they expect the one person going out into the middle of the woods, and if they don't find something, it turns into, well, I guess it doesn't exist. And I mean, if you think about how many things exist in the woods, I mean, there's bears that obviously exist in the woods. But how many people really, specifically, if it was just to say, okay, I'm going to get in touch with a bear, how many ever will? And there's definitely people who have, obviously. But bears are kind of more of an accepted thing at this point in time. I think it would blow too many people's minds if there were these type of cryptid sort of characters that are found.
Like 8-9 foot tall apes running around.
Especially in North America, that would just kind of, turn everything up on its head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It might. We'd probably try to turn them into a theme park or something horrible,
Oh
But
goodness, yeah. Well, that's
you
the
know,
thing too. If they found them, they're probably doing all kinds of experimentation, or they've created them and they've done it through experimentation, and they don't want anybody to know about it either. There's a whole bunch of millions of things. I love going down those rabbit holes.
it's fun, isn't it? Remember, before we ever saw a live giant squid, we knew they existed, but only because of either like corpses that were very, messed up that washed on shore, but also because of suction cup scars left on humpback whales that were enormous, way more enormous than a normal squid's, and we could determine how big that squid might be through the size of the suction cup scar on a whale. And then in 2007, I think in Japan, we finally got our first sight. I mean, that's not that long ago, man, of a giant squid.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
finally saw a live one, so it's amazing.
And especially in this day and age where everyone's got a camera all the time, they're working real hard to keep certain things under wraps or completely discredit you if you go out there and you claim to have proof. And that goes across the board for anything and everything. I mean, there's so much footage of UFOs and all that other kind of stuff. And I'm one of those guys that I don't know if there's a lot of the UFOs that are caught on film that are actually extraterrestrial, or if it's stagecraft based on the government having stuff and reverse engineering it and putting it out there, and people are catching stuff either on purpose or by accident when they do a test flight. But it's one of those things where there's strange stuff, and UFO doesn't have to necessarily mean extraterrestrial. It just is like, I don't know what the hell that is. It's flying around.
Yeah, that's a common term used in the Air Force all the time.
UAPs and everything nowadays and all that terminology. Yeah.
And it's the whole flying saucer thing became a thing in the 50s when that art first came out and those stories, and it kind of took off in American consciousness. And to this day, we're like, oh, look, saucery things. Someone messing with you with a drone, with some neon, with some LEDs.
Oh yeah, it's 100%. And there's so
Sometimes.
much. Yeah, there's so much crazy stuff that's out there that people can forge and fake at this point with technology. But then there's so much of it still that's just even all the reports that the government has had. I find that so funny with like that now NASA is like, oh, we're going to develop a team to look into these kind of things. And I'm like, you've had this kind of team for decades. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you've been doing this. Don't pretend.
It's so
the
strange.
Probes of aliens.
Yeah. now they officially, they put it on Twitter, so therefore now it's real. But it's like, well, what about all these other like 4 or 5 other projects over the past 50 to 70 years? Were those not official things that you guys were involved with? It's like, oh, yeah, those, I guess, I don't know. They make it as if, and we see it all the time. We've even experienced it in terms of when you're onto the truth about anything, especially if it's an uncomfortable truth. That's being pushed by very powerful and rich type people and corporations, especially. Never mind even the government involved. If you start to talk about things in a truthful way, they first try to, ignore you and then discredit you, and then attack you, and then do everything they can say under the sun to make other people look at you and go, don't believe them. They're a bad person. They're a crazy person. They're this and this. And then years and years later, everyone will just accept it that, oh yeah, they were telling the truth the whole time, and everyone, it's self-evident at this point. And that's, I mean, how many truths in history has that been essentially? So it's interesting to see the same, to see the same playbook over and over again. It's so insane. But yeah, Randy, Project Blue Book, all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah.
Are you someone who believes in any of that, or?
I don't. Well, here's the weird thing. I love all of it. Like to death. I research it. I love movies and stories about it, whatever. I grew up as a kid reading all the paranormal stuff because of my mom. I love those Time Life. Was it Time Life that did them?
Oh, yeah. I got a bunch of them. Yeah, right now. They're
best.
Amazing.
Still amazing. And oh, God, those were huge influences, So I love all of it. But my mom also instilled in me this skepticism. Where I'm questioning everything, and
it's good to be skeptic of it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So my questions for it always make me go down the road and go, if there is one, it'd be really, 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 really good at hiding. the best at hiding in the world. But other than that, we don't find bones. We don't find populations. We don't find a lot of nests of them. We don't find hair. We don't find the evidence of big giant apes running around. So I get all skeptical, but I still like, man, it'd be cool to have a Harry and the Hendersons type thing happen at some
Yeah.
point, man.
Yeah, because I always see that, and I'm thinking, and I think the same exact thoughts of, you should be able to have these kinds of hard empirical types of evidence, and when we don't have that for certain types of things, my mind immediately goes to, of course we don't. People in power don't want to let that out. They have the evidence,
Right.
but they don't want to let us know about it. So it's
Right.
that's where my mind immediately goes into.
I don't blame you, because
yeah.
the world we live in now. I mean,
Oh,
what?
totally. But yeah, I do have a healthy sense of skepticism in terms of things, but that's why I'm not afraid to say I believe in it, because belief
Right.
is required. It is definitely a faith-based sort of thing of like, I have faith that these things exist. I don't know if they exist. I'm not entirely sure that they exist, but a part of me is just thinking, more than enough people over the years, and for some things
Across
I mean,
cultures,
we're talking
across the
about
world.
yeah, and when you're
This is
talking even
worldwide.
about extraterrestrials, even, you're talking about, oh my lord, thousands of years of pictorial evidence and story evidence, and oral history and written history in terms of the descriptions of these sort of things, and they're so consistent. So it just seems like everyone describing what they're seeing, which was especially for ancient man to do, that seemed to be the norm. So for them to all of a sudden have brilliant senses of imagination out of nowhere when it came to certain topics, and then no imagination on any other thing, that seems very strange, And then there's leaps forward in technology that coincide with that kind of evidence too.
Right.
So even when you're talking about, again, now I can talk about this for all day, and we have maybe 5 minutes left.
Right, of
But
course.
when you're talking about something like Roswell occurring, and then there's a massive, if you
I
think
went to
about,
Roswell.
the massive leap forward in technology from Roswell to now, I mean, you're talking about possibly 1,000 years worth of technology occurring within 50 to 70 years.
I never thought about that.
When
Interesting.
previously, there's no other time of 50 to 70 years in history where technology leaps forward so tremendously. But it's like, you look at that point forward, and it's astonishing. So even stuff like that, it just, and when you talk about, even technology was kind of evolving a bit throughout war and World War I, World War II.
Right.
But when you talk about World War II, there's so many things that were occurring technologically that don't add up until you start digging deeper into
Like
even
radar.
Yeah, there's wireless technology.
Radar was awesome. Cool.
Even all kinds of crazy stuff going on in Antarctica in World War II between both sides of the fence, the Nazis and the Allies, in terms of discovering all kinds of madness.
Well,
I think that's why they're pissed about
we had
Antarctica melting nowadays, because then it's going to turn into, oh, look at all the stuff in Antarctica.
our bases and all our secret UFOs. Oh no. Yeah, man. The Nazis were totally trying to build UFOs. They had names for them and everything, didn't they? And they had the most brilliant rocket scientists and geniuses in the world.
Wernher von Braun, and then came over to
we took that for
Operation
ourselves right
Paperclip.
there.
Oh my lord, this is all real stuff. Yeah,
this is science fiction.
Yeah,
and we were definitely racing with them, and to make the next crazy tech. It's amazing. It's that humans do that stuff. It's really interesting, isn't it? What do you think about? I was going to ask you, when it comes to Bigfoot and teleportation. We might not have time, actually. It's like about a minute left. But Bigfoot and teleportation, do you believe that part of the mythos? Or
that part's a little bit shaky to me. I think it's more likely that there's a bunch of Bigfoots that are throughout, and that kind of a thing. But it is interesting to me, and it is possible. But it's one of those things of, it is. And everyone, Brian Sunleos is Pete and Vaughn Conspiracy Hour. We'll have to do a whole hour of this kind of talk, too.
Definitely.
But it's really interesting to me about all the different possibilities for things that there are. So I don't dismiss that as being a potential possibility. Again, I'm seriously, I'm 100%. The absence of proof is not the proof of absence.
Right.
With everything, it's like, what about? Yeah, you know,
Tell me.
what about, lunar bases? I'm like, impossible. Why not? It totally is. If there are, they're definitely not going to tell us until, it's
No
it's
way.
become an accepted thing, which I think is very strange because nowadays they're talking about that stuff more and more and more about
Uh-huh.
setting up lunar bases and things like that. And I'm like, because the bastards want us to get used to the idea that in 20 years they'll reveal it and act as if these are new, but they've already been there for 50 years.
Surprise, moon base.
Exactly.
You just didn't see us build it.
Exactly. Just the same exact way they've been doing it with UFO disclosure. That now they're saying like, yeah, there's that stuff. Meanwhile, it's been like across the board, no, no, no. The whole time.
Right, right. Oh, okay, fine. Yes, yeah. They did the same thing with MK Ultra. They
Yeah.
denied it. They always deny it first, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And it's sad because they'll ruin people's lives. There's people that have been murdered over this kind of stuff that's now accepted as plain fact. And honestly, though, if you look throughout all of history, there's people that were burned at the stake because they were like, "Hey, the Earth is round," or
Yep.
there's certain stars in the sky, and this is, these aren't ancient beings or something. These are,
Right.
celestial bodies or whatever, and all kinds of different various things that states of power have done to people that we now accept these things as blatant truth.
Yeah.
But so it shouldn't really necessarily shock us, but it's funny to see these kinds of truths being revealed slowly today. And if you're kind of in the know, you're like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, saw it coming, knew it, blogged about it, got called crazy for years. Now NASA confirmed. Okay, no big deal, just another Tuesday. That's amazing. The truth is a prickly thing. It always will, but embracing it is so much better than the alternative of how do we try to contain it. Because I was thinking about it today, and the truth's a lot like trying to contain liquid. It's gonna seep out at some point. You can't contain it forever.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a good place to end the show on.
Yeah.
Which is also why Bruce Lee wants you to be water, my friend.
Be like
Here is
water.
the link for you guys to Terror in the Trenches. You guys can go check out Vaughn's book. It's currently on Indiegogo. It is still in demand right now. Any idea of when this is coming out of in demand?
No, like hard date, but the next batch of colors should be the last pages, the last 13 pages, and we'll be done with coloring. And Eric's already gone ahead and finished the letterings. We're gonna do a polish and edit, of course. So little time on that, then printing. So I would like to start shipping this book and keep it in demand, just in case people, come on later and get in on the excitement of me getting books in hands. So this will be in demand for a little while longer. While we get the book in people's hands. So I'll keep you
fantastic.
updated on once we finish colors, because then it'll be print time.
All right.
After that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that was terrific. Thank you so much, Vaughn, for your time. Everybody in the chat, thank you guys today. Hopefully the next time around, we will not have anybody be kind of shy whatsoever. Don't be shy. Vaughn and myself, we'd love
Come
to talk
hang
to you
next
guys.
time.
Yeah, 100%.
Definitely, man.
And we'll have Vaughn back because we got to have a whole full hour of this crazy stuff discussion.
This will be fun.
Thank you guys again. Have a great
Thanks,
night.
Pete.
And Vaughn, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you, Pete. Thanks, chat. Love you guys. Take care now.